We're back again with another DCU movie pitch, this time with Superman. Yay! I don't really know how to give an intro to this, so I hope you enjoy this video, as all of these take me ages to do. I know it seems like I pump out them pretty quickly, or at least I hope it'll seem like that if I get this out on time, but that's actually not true. These always take me a really long time. I'm very ADHD, so I write them simultaneously. So they all take me a while. It just looks like they're coming out pretty quick. Anyway, this movie is a lot more lighthearted than the Batman one because it's Superman, and it's also the closest you'll get to the MCU in this movie universe. Because it'll be a bit campy. It'll be, humorous. Anyway, let's start. The film opens with a haunting, intense flashback to Krypton's final hours. I'm gonna keep this quick, the intro at least. Man of Steel took 20 minutes on Krypton. We get it. It ends, okay? It blows up. We get the point. We don't need 20 minutes. I mean, if you're really conservative with it, you could literally do a 30-second flashback. People know what it is. They know what they're coming here to see. They know the story. So the only real big thing I want to communicate here is General Zod, who is our main antagonist. So I want to have him starting to have a last-ditch military coup, trying to take over Krypton, try and wrangle all the forces he can before it blows up so he can have leadership elsewhere, basically. He wants last-minute power. But the Kryptonian Council doesn't allow that and condemns him, and I would say exile, but the planet's kind of exploding, so I don't know if that really counts as an exile. You're kind of just giving him an extra escape to not die, but either way, he's exiled. A really cool thing here would be if you could show Superman coming to Earth and Zod coming to Earth and kind of play the scenes side by side, not literally side by side, but have one after another. That's how I kind of imagine it in this intro, that because obviously, as I said previously, we're not going to have a massive origin story because we know how that works. I think it should be flashes of scenes side by side of Superman and Zod growing up on this Earth and showing how different it is for both of them. Anyway, cut to present day, Metropolis, of course. Clark Kent is, he's known around the office as a great guy in the Daily Planet. He's the guy you can rely on all the time. But he's living a double life, obviously. Not in the dark Batman way, but in the, I guess, very stressed Spider-Man way. In the fact that he never seems to have enough time to do everything. The man who is faster than a speeding bullet still never finds the time to balance both. Clark has a genuine warmth and hopefulness in this movie. I want him to be heroic even when he's not in his Superman kind of gear. I want it to be, he doesn't just go for the, Superman punching and stuff. He tries to even de-escalate. I'm imagining a scene of, a mugging, and instead of instantly going in, with his red tights and beating up the guys, especially because he doesn't know how to hold back his own power yet effectively, so he could really hurt them. He goes in as Clark Kent and, tries to de-escalate the situation. So Clark Kent is still kind of a bit of a meek guy, but not really. He's more of just a sweetheart, He wouldn't hurt a fly, but he's also not a pushover. At the Daily Planet, Lois Lane fiercely pursues a lead on a strange, unexplained energy phenomenon reported around the city. She's very headstrong, very sharp, that kind of trope. And she's very fearless. She doesn't care what's going to happen. She wants a story out there. She doesn't care about fame or popularity. She just wants to tell good stories, and she wants to tell important things that change the world. Meanwhile, Jimmy Olsen, yes, I'm having Jimmy Olsen. Zack Schneider might kill me for that. I don't know if you know, that's a reference to the fact that Zack Schneider killed Jimmy Olsen in like 5 minutes in on Batman vs Superman. It was a great decision. Everyone loved it. He's kind of like the comic relief. I mean, it's a light-hearted movie anyway, but he's a comic relief, basically. And he's very eager, so he's Clark Kent's protege in the company, so he kind of shows him the ropes. But eventually, he just starts working with Lois Lane, and they become a bit of a trio. Suddenly, a catastrophic explosion rocks the outskirts of Metropolis, and Zod's ship has crashed, announcing his arrival. Towering and commanding, Zod emerges as a formidable presence, cold and unyielding. He proclaims his mission to restore Krypton by terraforming Earth and purging it of what he calls weakness. Superman, in his, classic get-up, does confront Zod. It doesn't go very well. It goes really bad. Superman at this point has fought, thugs. He's thought, just people like that, very low-level criminals. Maybe he's fought some superhuman, some metahuman once, but it's never been world-ending, and Zod is that. So he gets his ass absolutely handed to him. I mean, it's not even close. Zod, I wouldn't say he's toying with him because he's a very no-nonsense kind of guy, but he basically gets as close as possible as he could to that. He's having a lot of fun, let's be real. Following Zod's dramatic arrival and confrontation with Superman, Metropolis begins to reel under the impact of the terraforming machines. So I realise this is quite a world-ending threat. So what I'm kind of imagining is, this is like an Act 3 threat, right? And we're only in, Act 2? Yeah. So what I'm proposing is basically it's kind of like a looming presence. So it's I guess it doesn't sound very intimidating if I describe it as very slow, but it honestly is that. I'm imagining it's not like Man of Steel where it's like a massive explosion every time. It's a very slow process of the ground shifting and quaking and all that. So it's a very real thing that is happening throughout the movie. It's like a ticking time bomb. And they can't really escape it. It's just keeping on going. And Superman has to, in that amount of time, figure out how the hell does he beat Zod. I mean, they may be the same race, a Kryptonian, but that doesn't mean that they're in any way the amount of power of each other. Lois Lane intensifies her investigation. Her fearless reporting does really help. It becomes a beacon of hope for Metropolis. It's like kind of the only trusted news at that point because, all the other people have just fucked off. It's the end of the world, they're not bothering with this, but Lois Lane is still providing news to the rest of the world. Jimmy Olsen, while originally the comic relief, basically has his own little mini story where he goes to a bit of a covert mission to get intel from a Zod-controlled zone. So he has his whole, henchmen. When he did the uprising in Krypton before it was destroyed, he got his own henchmen. And they aren't as powerful as Zod, but they're still Kryptonians, so they're still, nothing to scoff at. He gets all the intel and he goes back to Superman and Lois, who of course is our trio of this movie. And Superman originally is almost horrified. He's very protective of them too. He knows that he's more powerful than them, so he's very worried. But they all come to their senses, all of them, and they realise that if they're going to win any of this, they're all going to have to work together. It doesn't matter if you're a Kryptonian or not. They just have to do that. So, eventually, Zod gets essentially sick of this shit and launches a calculated strike against the Daily Planet. aiming to silence Lois and Jimmy and crush the resistance that is rising, because they've almost built their own kind of community in the Daily Planet. I almost said Daily Bugle. God, okay, wrong universe. Anyway, Superman throughout this has his own inner conflict because, you need it for a movie, but also because I'm tired of people saying, Superman's so boring, he's such a Boy Scout. So, he's basically struggling with his dual identity, right? So, he's the last Kryptonian, pretty much. I mean, the only other Kryptonians are arseholes. So, he's like the last good Kryptonian, and he needs to be seen as that, right? Zod is destroying his reputation. These are these aliens that are destroying their home, and Superman has to be the beacon of light in this. He has to wrestle with Zod's own ideology in his mind. I mean, all Zod is trying to do, in a roundabout way, in a very horrible way, is to remake Krypton. I mean, that's kind of what Superman wants too, right? He wants his home back, he wants his family back, and he just wants to be with other people. Lois, is kind of his rock in this, and Superman kind of realizes something. He's human. Effectively, he's human. He may be Kryptonian, but he's grown up on Earth, and pretty much all he knows is humanity. He is effectively human, even if he can, fly faster than a speeding bullet and breathe frost breath and all that. He is, by all accounts, basically human, or at least he's a lot more human than Zod is. So he prepares for the final battle. He's found himself and all that cliche. So Zod's terraforming device is going to overdrive, and they've now started to get even closer to the Daily. Oh my god, I almost said Daily Bugle again. To the Daily Planet. But surely they have to do something about this, right? Can they reverse this? Can they stop Zod? I mean, who knows, right? So, Lois and Jimmy throughout have been using their investigative skills to figure out more about the Kryptonian race and how they work. Because obviously even Superman doesn't know that. And this also feeds into his whole self-doubt. So they need to figure out, is there a way to stop this terraforming device? Kinda. So, the city's on the brink of collapse, and Zod's terraforming machines have created devastating, storms. I'm thinking like this is proper end of the world. It might be a bit too much. People are going to say a bit too much for a first, Superman movie. This is only a second one of a whole universe, but it's okay. Because Superman only has really powerful villains, by virtue of being Superman. So, as the planet basically is this. Superman goes to fight Zod. And, I mean, he's been training, but it's not like he's suddenly gotten a million times more powerful. While this happens, Lois and Jimmy go to the terraforming ship, and goes to sabotage it. They have to navigate basically a labyrinth of Kryptonian tech. I want it to be properly weird. Like, I don't want it to just be a mirror of Earth. I want it to be very strange. And obviously they can't fight any Kryptonians while they're there, so they just have to hide, basically, and be very sneaky. And all of this happens meanwhile Superman is fighting Zod, so it's a nice cut back and forth. So Superman and Zod are facing off in like a breathtaking aerial and ground battle. Imagine Man of Steel's fight, but not like 2 hours long. You don't need no, it wasn't 2 hours. It's like an hour and a half of that movie is just fighting Zod or something crazy like that. I don't want that. I don't need that. We don't need that. Okay. All we need is a good fight. So imagine just a really intense fight. Maybe a bit of Omni-Man and Invincible. Maybe a bit of Conquest and Invincible. I'm imagining more Conquest actually, because I think Zod would be very similar to him in the ruthlessness and, you know, taking a bit of pleasure in the fight. And eventually, you know, Zod has Superman down on the ground and, you know, gives him one last chance. You can join us or you can die, but honestly, I really hope you just don't surrender and I get a good fight out of this. But then suddenly Lois's and Jimmy's mission succeeds and they are able to disable the core device of the terraformer. So Zod is like, what the hell? And while he's distracted, Superman gives a good solid punch and a good fight, you know, ensues. And, you know, a very long, good fight, but not too long. And it doesn't overstay its welcome, let's say that. And eventually Superman doesn't just overpower Zod, but he also outsmarts him. So yeah, Zod is fully defeated. Metropolis begins a slow process of healing. The terraforming device, it took about maybe almost half of Metropolis into Krypton. So they're having to rebuild now. And it's irreversible, kind of. I mean, they can rebuild, but they can't just, you know, flip a switch and it goes back to normal. So, Clark has embraced his dual identity with a new purpose, obviously. He's now Superman, but he's also Clark Kent. And he is a man of Earth, a man of the people. But he still isn't ashamed of his Kryptonian side. Now, we have to have a post-credit scene. Of course we do. How could we not? So, just before this, by the way, I forgot to mention, Lois and Jimmy get the credit they deserve for being amazing journalists, and they all, you know, have their happy moments, and it's a trio. And Clark and Lois aren't dating yet. It'll probably come later, but I just want to reinforce the whole trio idea of them being best friends. So, our post-credit scene is... Basically, after the credits, the screen fades to black, and then you just see space. And a massive, ominous planet filled with lava and volcanoes and all that, which is Apocalypse, which is where Darkseid lives. And the camera is zooming in, and eventually you get to a throne upon a massive castle. And it's Darkseid with his glowing red eyes, and his voice echoes. And I want this to be such an echo that, like, in the cinema you can feel it, you know. And it's deep and menacing. And he says, "Earth has its champion. It is just a flicker of a resistance against me. Soon the true reckoning will begin. I shall find the anti-life equation, and every single person that has ever existed in this world shall be mine. No Kryptonian will even be able to resist. Zod may have failed me, but there is always someone you can count on. Yourself." And then he raises his gauntleted hand, and, you know, his omega beams from his eyes, you know, fire straight at the camera, and then it, you know, goes all red and just done. That's the end of the movie. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I really enjoy making that video. I always enjoy making videos like this. I get to nerd out, I get to yap. You know what I'm like. This is like my favourite kind of video. Low effort, I just put some gameplay in the background, you know, talk about what I'd want in a movie. Very, very good. I say low effort, it took me fucking ages. The scripts of these videos, you would not imagine how long they take me. Really embarrassingly long, actually. I remember the absolute Superman, the absolute Spider-Man video took me maybe 2 months altogether. It was an embarrassingly long time, but it was fun, and so is this. So I will continue making stuff like this. Alright, that's about it. See ya.